Now we get to one of my favorite horror slasher films of all time, Freddy vs. Jason. This movie came out over 20 years ago. Wow. My goodness. Of course, I didn't see it at the time it came out. I was too young, but still, over 20 years ago. So, again, I'll do my usual Google reviews and how they break it down and comments in media. Now, the synopsis on Google says, two horror icons face off in this supernatural movie. Disfigured serial killer Freddy Krueger, played by Robert Englund, who attacks his victims in their dreams, has lost much of his power since citizens of his town have become less afraid of him. Enlisting the help of fellow violent murderer Jason Voorhees, played by Kirzinger, Freddy orchestrates a new killing spree. However, when the hockey mask-wearing psychopath won't stop chopping up Freddy's intended victims, the two ghouls start to battle each other. Yeah, and it was just that interesting. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you, so I think the last time, which also might be the first time, so I didn't watch the movie until about 2009 or 10. I think 2010 or 11 was around the last time I had actually watched the movie. So I couldn't remember much about it, except for maybe one or two scenes. And I just watched this movie again the other day, and it's definitely much scarier than what I remembered it to be. Very scary, very frightening, very dark and creepy and eerie and suspenseful. Just all the things that, you would expect in the horror slasher movie. And I'm sure that if I go to Common Sense Media, there's going to be some kids on there giving a review when they shouldn't be. I'm sure there's going to be some parents that say, oh, my kid was watching this movie and he got scared and now he can't sleep at night. And it's, I don't know what to do. Well, I know what to do. Tell your kids that they're not supposed to watch that stuff because it's not a kid's movie. The same things, I read these reviews of people talk about their kids saw Scream or saw Halloween and stuff. Like, it's not for kids. Stop letting them watch this stuff. So, the movie's exact date was August 13, 2003. Director was Ronnie Yu. The budget on the film was $30 million. The box office was almost $117 million. I personally think it should have got more than that. But hey, at least they did a few times their budget. I mean, you're talking almost 4 times the budget. That's good for a movie like that, for a horror slasher movie that came out in the early 2000s. Let's see, what else do we have here? So here are the ratings coming from the different sources. Common Sense Media only gave it a 40. Yep, screw you. Rotten Tomatoes, 42. Yep. Not being nice there either. Rotten Tomatoes, you can't help yourself. Come on now. Internet Movie Database, 57. Okay, a little bit nicer, but we could still do better. And then among Google users, we have 84 to 85%. Okay, that's more like it. Now, my take on this movie, I give it a 10. The movie gets a 10. I definitely would put this in my... So instead of doing it by franchise, where I say, oh, number 1 is like the Scream series and number 2 is the Halloween series. Okay, not even by series. If I did individual movies, I would say that this movie for sure is in the top 10 of horror films of all time. I'm debating if it's going to be in the top 5. Once I cover a few more movies, I'll get into that later on, and then I'll compile my own subjective list, and then you review the list, tell me what you think about it, and how would you edit the list to fit your own subjective perception on or perspective on your top 10 horror movies. So this movie right now is not available to watch on any major streaming. I think it was on Max not too long ago, but they took it off, which is why I bought it, because I really liked the movie, and yeah. So a 5-star on Google says, Freddy vs. Jason succeeds at putting two of horror icons of the last century for the ultimate death matches in cinematic history. I have so much nostalgia for this movie because I've seen it when I was 6 years old, which is, again, like I said, my parents would have never let me watch something like that at age 6. I love the characters like Monica Keena, Kelly Rowland, and Catherine Isabel. They were the most attractive part of the movie. This is one of the few films in the 2000s I don't mind revisiting numerous times throughout the year. My favorite part of the movie is the cinematography and the music of the party in the cornfield. So hypnotic and beautiful when Will reconciles with Lori. Freddy vs. Jason will never get old. As a matter of fact, you're right on that. And I might actually watch it again. What am I talking about? I know I'm going to watch it again. It's one of my favorite movies. The kills were awesome, especially the stoner kid's death when Jason slices him in half. Carnage Candy people. Carnage Candy. I would have really wanted to see a sequel with this film with Robert Englund comes back as Freddy Krueger and Monica Keena returning as Laurie Campbell. I know some people have issues with this movie, but movies are meant to entertain people. This movie sure entertains me. Thank you so much for saying that. That is what I've always been saying. Movies are designed, most movies are, not all, most movies are designed to entertain people, especially horror slasher films, especially action thriller films, comedy drama films, stuff like that. It's all for entertainment. Expect these movies to have some hints of realism and some hints of non-realism, some hints of fantasy fiction. I mean, that's just, come on. Now let's go over to Common Sense Media and see what they had to say about this. So, the violence and the scariness. Exceptionally intense and graphic violence, many murders, intense peril. Which is exactly what you would expect from a slasher film. Because that's what they did in all the Jason movies and all the Freddy movies. So when you put Freddy and Jason together, what do you expect? Okay. Parents need to know that this movie contains lots of nudity and some sex, lots of foul language, and characters who drink and do drugs. There is also an ambiguous date rape and a brief racial slur toward the only black character in the entire movie. Actually, you know what? I did catch that, yeah. Because Freddy Krueger looked at Kelly Rowland's character and said, "Oh, dark meat." Okay, all right. People are gutted, stabbed, impaled, torn apart, sliced open, burned, crushed, and killed in just about any way that produces lots of gushing blood. Just like Mortal Kombat fatalities. That's really what that is. But if it's any consolation to parents, all kids who engage in stupid behavior pay for it pretty heavily. To stay in the loop for more... Okay, that's the rest of the advertisement right there. And what do I see? Of course. Why is it that when it comes to... Okay, look. All these reviews... There are 8 and 8 is 16, so this must be 76 people commented and gave their reviews on Common Sense Media. 18 of them are parents, 58 are kids. Why is it that when I'm looking at horror slasher film reviews on Common Sense Media, why are there always more kids to give reviews than adults? Like, that's the thing that throws me off. Like, what? I mean, what's next? Am I going to see more kids than adults giving their reviews on stuff like, I don't know, The Exorcist, or shoot, is there going to be more kids and adults viewing Basic Instinct, or what was that movie with that every woman in the country went to go see? What was that? The Magic Mike? Are there more kids giving their reviews on that too? Wow. Now, what's the story? And here's how Common Sense Media breaks it down. Freddy vs. Jason brings together the maniacal killers of the popular slasher film series Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. Now in hell, Freddy tricks Jason into another Elm Street killing spree, but Jason is furious when he realizes he's been part of Freddy's game, and the movie culminates in the ultimate bloody battle between the two insane killers. Freddy vs. Jason co-stars Jason Ritter, Kelly Rowland, and Monica Keena. Now, again, just a little bit of a breakdown of the story, so people are... I know all the real horror fans had already seen this movie, but for some odd reason, for whatever chance, in case you didn't see it, just in case, because I don't expect everybody to watch every movie, but I expect all the hardcore horror fans to watch this. So here's what it comes down to. So Freddy meets Jason down in hell. And of course, I'm going to give some spoilers to this because the movie's over 20 years old. So if you didn't see it, then rent it on YouTube or Amazon, or just find it somewhere. Find somebody who's got a DVD of it or something. So Freddy meets Jason in hell. And so Freddy has the ability to shapeshift. He transforms and changes physical appearance into different people, kind of like how Shang Tsung does on Mortal Kombat. I can morph into this person. So he turns into Jason's mother. Jason's mother was killed in the first Friday the 13th movie. And he says to her, she says to Jason, go to Elm Street and kill a bunch of kids, teenagers. Jason does it. He goes there and he kills a bunch of teens and a bunch of people in general. But Freddy is starting to get ticked off at the fact that, wait a minute, I just wanted you to come here. Now you're taking the spotlight from me. Now I'm going to have to go against you. So now what it was Freddy and Jason were killing people separately. And now here they are attempting to kill each other. And so, yeah, this is ultimately one of the bloodiest battles you could ever see. And I think this movie is a little bit underrated. I personally, there's a part of me that thinks the movie deserves a re-release. They should have re-released it in theaters last year, but they missed the opportunity, and maybe they'll do it in another 10 years, 20 years, whatever. That's kind of what that comes down to. As I said, I give the movie a 10. Now, is it any good? Yes, it's very good. Outside of the title characters, the cast is uninteresting, even interchangeable. I kind of disagree. They're only there to get killed anyway. Save for the classically trained Robert Englund, who reprises his role as the diabolical Freddy Krueger, there are no memorable performances, just busty, pouty-lipped girls in revealing clothing and stereotyped drunk high school guys who scream and run and get gutted like fish. The highlights are definitely Freddy and Jason. Indeed, Freddy vs. Jason this movie delivers its promise of the ultimate battle between the two slasher characters. This guest review was provided by the son of the movie mom, a 19-year-old fan of slasher movies who wanted me to give the movie an A-. Here's what he had to say. The newest addition to the series will meet or surpass the expectations of the fans, while the critics will know to avoid it. The plot is ridiculous, and even if it made any sense, it would be too pointless and too complicated to put down into a review. It's just an excuse to have two of the scariest guys in movie history fight each other with much carnage. I thought the movie was pretty well done. I mean, again, this is just opinion. I'm not saying that what they're saying is invalid. I thought it was well worth it. I thought it was very watchable. I think it's memorable. I think that, like I said, I'm going to watch it again. I know other horror fans have seen it more than once. Families can talk about the enduring appeal of slasher films, particularly the consistent themes that teens who have sex or drink or use drugs get horribly killed. What message does that send? You know, this reminds me of Randy's rules from Scream 1. He said there are certain rules to survive in a horror film. Number 1, don't ever say, I'll be right back, because you'll never be back. Number 2, no sex, drugs, or alcohol. Well, it turns out in this case, there was sex, there was drugs, there was alcohol, and they got killed. But that doesn't mean that with every single movie, it's always, I mean, you've had some people do sex scenes that didn't end up killed. I mean, Sidney had sex with Billy in the first Scream movie, but of course, you know, he ends up killed because obviously he was the killer. He was the main killer, but she didn't know that he was. But she survived it, and she survived all the movies. Plenty of other people did. So, I mean, it's hard for me to answer that question. What message does that send? I mean, what message do you think it sends? See if you can answer that. So, and as far as the cast, of course, Robert Englund and Ken Kirzinger, as I said, they played Freddy and Jason respectively. You had Monica Keena play Laurie. You had Catherine Isabel play Gib. Kelly Rowland played Kia. Jason Ritter played Will. Chris Marquette played Charlie. Lachlan Monroe played Deputy Scott. And then you had a whole bunch of other people. A lot of other people. There's like 20 other names. I don't have to go through that whole list. Oh, by the way, that's Brian Thompson. He played Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I don't remember him being in there. He must have been a background character or something. So anyway, that's my review of it. And if you haven't seen the movie, watch it. And if you've already watched it, then just watch it again.